I'm your host, Justine Oxsoy, and this is the Pleasurehood Podcast, a podcast where we explore what it means to be a mother, a leader, and an all-around badass from a place of pleasure, empowerment, and turn on. I am here to revolutionize how humans experience sex, pleasure, and motherhood by normalizing self-care, normalizing mothers having desires, and normalizing mothers as sensual and sexual beings. Quick side note, you don't have to be a mother in order to listen to this podcast. Though I create my work with mothers in mind, this conversation is truly for everyone. I believe that pleasure is one of many paths of healing, and I'm here to highlight how to walk that path, no matter who you are. It is my deepest desire that wherever you find yourself on this amazing journey we call life, you can experience your power, your turn on, and of course, orgasmic pleasure. Hello. I'm so excited to have you with me for another episode of the Pleasurehood Podcast. And in this episode, I talk a lot about what's going on in the world. And I also talk about how we can take these really heavy emotions that we might be feeling by seeing all the sadness and the grief that other individuals are going through, and how to take that energy and turn it into action for powerful change. These are my own musings of what I feel is important when it comes to being in community with other people, and not just your local community, but also our global community. Because let's face it, we're more connected than not. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with pleasure? Well, what I find is the more I dive into my individual journey with pleasure, I realize that my liberation as a human, as a Black woman, is connected to everyone else's. And though I can dive into my delicious, yummy path of pleasure, I realize that I want the same for other people. I want other people to feel safe enough to feel like they can experience pleasure in their lives. I want people to have their needs met, to feel like they can thrive and not just be in survival mode all the time. And unfortunately, most of us are living in a space of survival, and we're not even sure how to get to the other side, or if we can even get to the other side of thriving. And when we experience collective pain, pleasure feels even more inaccessible. But for me, pleasure is an energy that allows us to connect more deeply to the core of our truth. Because when we feel good, we're able to act from a place of clarity, alignment. And when we act from a place of clarity and alignment, we're in our power. And when we're in our power, we can transform and change not just ourselves, but I truly believe the world. But the first step is really understanding how we're feeling and how those feelings drive us to action or inaction. So I hope you enjoy my musings. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments, your ideas in the comments below. And if you are listening to this anywhere else, I invite you to go to my Instagram at Justine Oxsoy and share how you feel about this episode in my DMs. I would love to hear from you. So anyway, enjoy this week's episode of the Pleasurehood Podcast. And yeah, I hope It supports you in the deepest way possible, especially if you're finding it difficult to navigate the world, society in its current condition. Because it's a fucking lot. You're not crazy. It's a fucking lot. All right, let's get into it. There is so much happening in the world right now. It can feel frustrating and confusing and leave you feeling unsure of where to share your time, your energy, money, and resources. The world is experiencing an unprecedented amount of grief and sadness at the moment. The earthquake in Turkey and Syria that has left 35,000 lives lost and many more without a home, food, basic necessities. There's the ongoing war in Ukraine, the derailed train in Palestine, Ohio that has caused a devastating leak of toxic chemicals in the air, the murder of Tyree Nichols at the hands of 5 Memphis police officers, and then there's our own personal trials and tribulations that we're doing our best to navigate day in and day out. We see death, destruction, and grief on our television, on the internet, social media. We hear it on the radio, and it feels like it gives us reasons to be afraid of life and living itself. We see these images of human suffering and experience a myriad of feelings and emotions that most of us are not sure how to navigate. We don't know what to do with all of this energy that seems to build into an unbearable pressure, and sometimes it causes us to implode. But if I've learned anything in the past 7 years from my embodiment journey, that is emotions are powerful beyond measure. If we allow them to, they can become conduits for great power and even greater change. If we allow them to, they can show us what isn't exactly working in our lives, in our society, in our communities, and they can lead us down a path towards creating a more fruitful future for ourselves and the next generation. But because we aren't sure how to channel this energy for our highest good, and because the energy of our emotions can feel really intense, we sometimes numb what we're feeling, or we just try to push it down so far into our bodies in the hopes that this feeling of discomfort will eventually just go away. But it never does it? It usually turns into something else. It turns into anger towards the ones we love. It turns into anger towards ourselves. It turns into frustration. It turns into feeling like we don't want to do anything with our lives. It turns into feelings of stagnation, lost, confusion. But I'm here to tell you that wherever you currently are and how you feel and the emotions that you're experiencing, whether you know why you feel the way you do or you don't, it's perfectly fine. And it's never too late to choose something different. I can't tell you how many times I have felt down and out about life and all the shit that is happening. And because it just feels like a never-ending dumpster fire, right? With no end in sight. And it's so easy for that dumpster fire of frustration, confusion, skepticism, uncertainty, and doubt to turn into overwhelm. And overwhelm can turn into hopelessness, and hopelessness can lead to complacency. And this, my friend, is a cocktail for burnout. And sometimes nothing creative comes from a space of burnout, most of the time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, complacent, or burned out about all the shit that's happening in the world right now, and it's leaving you feeling frozen, not sure how to act, what to do, how to do it, I've found personally the best way to process this energy and channel it in an empowering way is to, one, just stop, breathe, move, and then ground. Why do I say stop? Because a lot of times we allow these thoughts, these emotions and feelings to turn into thoughts, and then our thoughts turn into stories, and then they just keep running around in our heads over and over and over and over again. Sometimes it causes us to have the same knee-jerk reaction to everything, and we find ourselves in the same patterns of living, and we feel like nothing is changing. And when we feel like nothing is changing, we become complacent. So when we stop and just wait and do nothing, it can stop those racing thoughts, those racing emotions, and allow you to choose something differently. And in that moment, I invite you to choose your breath. Breath is so powerful. Breathing is so powerful. It's something we do every single day. And we take it for granted because we expect the next breath to come. And sometimes for others, it doesn't. So breath is so incredibly precious. So when you stop, I invite you to breathe by closing your eyes and taking 3 deep breaths, breathing all the way past your diaphragm, deep into your belly, expanding it as big as possible, and doing it 3 times or as many times as it takes to bring you into the present moment, bringing your energy into the present moment. And then you're going to move your body, because the sensations of overwhelm and helplessness can flood your nervous system with hormones that can cause your flight, fight, freeze response to kick in. And by moving your body, it allows you to move those responses through your body with the idea of bringing your body back to homeostasis, which allows you to act from a space of clarity instead of survival. So move your body, jump up and down, do jumping jacks, run in place, get the energy moving up and out, and then ground yourself. Stand with your feet planted firmly on the ground. If you can do this outside with the grass or dirt supporting you, I highly recommend it. If you don't have a park, then go to your neighbor's yard if you can. Because when you feel yourself being held and supported by the earth, it feels very nurturing and nourishing. And as you feel supported and held by the earth, you'll release sensations, feelings, thoughts that are not serving you into the ground. Like imagining the ground just soaking it up, taking it from you. And then imagine yourself allowing the earth to replenish you with its energy, energizing you with warm and loving vibrations. You are not alone. You are being held. And if breathing, moving, and grounding yourself brings you to this place of clarity, brings you into the present moment, then I also encourage you to choose one issue that you deeply connect with, find a reputable foundation to contribute to, and decide what kind of resources you'd like to donate. Is it your time, money, or energy? And decide for how much that is and for how long. Write it down, because then you're able to be like, oh, okay, like this is where I want to spend my energy, my time, my resources. This is for how long I can do it. And this is for how much time I can give, how much money I can give, how much energy I can give. And then I invite you to get into community. Invite family and friends to help. Doing this with family and friends can help make sharing resources feel more like a community effort instead of a solo one. And then I invite you to share. Share what you're doing with others. Encourage them to do the same. Perhaps share causes that you deeply care about but don't have the resources to donate at that time. Perhaps this will inspire others to get involved with those causes too. Now you can begin to act from a place of clarity and heart and mind alignment. This is mobilization and getting into action. And know that however you decide to show up is absolutely perfect. Don't make yourself wrong if you feel like you're doing too little. Just be doing what you can to create a world Know that however you decide to show up is absolutely perfect. Don't make yourself wrong if you feel like you're doing too little. Just by doing what you can creates a world of difference. If I've learned anything in the past few years, it's that this world is incredibly small, and we are truly turning into a global community because we see things that are happening on the other side of the world, and we see how it affects other people, and we see how it changes their lives forever, and we feel how it changes us forever because we share in their grief, we share in their pain, because we understand that these are just other humans trying to do their best to live the best lives that they possibly can. Also, if I've learned anything in the past few years, it's that life is so fucking precious. And I know that's like very cliche and so many people say that, but it's fucking true. Life is fucking precious. When I was pregnant with my son, I couldn't believe how magical the body, like my body was. How magical the process of building a life, a child from fucking scratch was. And the fact that I didn't have to think about anything, and yet I was creating life itself. And that's how we all fucking got here. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, my mind is so blown by this human experience. And it gives me hope. It really does. It gives me hope in humanity. I truly have hope that we can turn all this shit around. But we can't do it alone. We must do it together. Though I believe that we all must go on our own individual healing journeys, and we all must find the path towards healing and wholeness and completeness on our own, there is also a collective journey we must go on together. One of forgiveness, redemption, and reconciliation. One where we let go of our individual stories and realize that we are all one. And not in some like fucking woo-woo way, but we must realize that our freedom is tied to one another. If one of us is not free, then we're all not free. If one of us is oppressed, then we're all oppressed. Granted, everyone's oppression looks different, but we're all in it together. If one of us are in chains, all of us are in chains. And we must realize that our lives are interconnected. What hurts one hurts the whole of us. And until we begin to live this universal truth, I'm afraid that we actually might be doomed. But I do believe there is time for us to turn this around, and it begins with taking care of one another, looking out not just for our individual good, but the good of everyone. It is time for us to get our heads out of the fucking sand and face some hard truths, some uncomfortable and inconvenient truths. Like I said, life is a fucking miracle, and it's time we treat it and one another as such. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Pleasurehood Podcast. Catch new episodes every other week on Spotify, YouTube, and of course, Apple Podcasts. If you're an Apple Podcast user and love the stories, practices, musings, and nuggets of wisdom I share, you can show your support by leaving a review. For more of my musings on pleasure, motherhood, and sex, head over to Instagram and follow me at Justine Oxoy or pleasure.hood. And if you're ready to take your Pleasurehood game to the next level, sign up for my newsletter where you'll receive words of love, encouragement, and support as you take your pleasure practice a little deeper. That's all for now, Radiant Ones. I can't wait to go deep with you on this path we call pleasure. Until next time, stay wild, sexy, and free.
I